and here is this week's installment of Ezekiel Kralen's story that was for a long time about the little dogs, but now is about other things, and maybe will be about the dogs again in the future. I don't know. This is titled Deek's Return. Ezekiel Kralen wrote. Email correspondence from November 12 to November 16. Subject, Mythic Quest Lifted My Spirit. As one who regards grief and other negative emotions as illusions that need to be overcome as soon as possible whenever they strike, I consider this latest crisis as yet another challenge, albeit one of the most horrific in my life. The upcoming midterms did not help any, considering the gloom of barbarism and violence they cast upon our world. Fortunately, they turned out better than expected, so that's a burden lifted. The past few days have been a psychic bombardment of worst-case scenarios about the dog's tragic demise from hypothermia or choking to death from chicken bones, Deek turning violent and attempting to get me evicted, forcing me to have him arrested and the pups taken away by animal control. But all the while I kept reminding myself to stop this vicious cycle of worry, find ways to relax, things to enjoy. For if my bodhisattva premise is correct, this is just another challenge to find a way to crawl out of this deep, dark pit. For as the Buddha says, heaven and hell are a state of mind. So I began to gradually stabilize, though with lingering sadness, and it wasn't until I discovered the TV series Mythic Quest, Raven's Banquet, that a renewed spark of joy began to lighten my heart. It's another show starring geeks, just like Silicon Valley, and every bit as delightful, only this show focuses on gamers, though with the same goofiness and unbridled hilarity. There is also another series I discovered that brings me pleasure, an animated spoof of Star Trek called Lower Decks. Silly and well done, too, but I've only watched the first 2 episodes because Mythic Quest has me captivated. Marshall's narration of my latest piece was another winner, and I got to hear that one live, too, shortly after midnight. A couple of distractions took him away from the reading, but it was easy enough to splice them out to where the narration was seamless. Usually I prefer to keep his side comments intact for its value of added flavor, like a drizzle of icing on the cupcake, but this time around the disruptions did nothing to enhance the telling, so they were banished from my kingdom. I prefer to believe that Flacco and Lucky are doing fine, that Deek is growing up fast now that I no longer enable him, and that he's treating the pups better, and that somehow, some way, my Brindlekin odyssey will culminate in a happy outcome, though I can't imagine how that could possibly occur. For the way of the Bodhisattva is convoluted and often horrific, but always with joyful results in the long run, and it is a fool indeed who harbors dark fantasies just because he cannot see the future. But for the nonce, I cannot possibly see him, as it would only serve to create further enmity on his part and negatively impact the hounds. I'd only be able to hug and pet them for a short time, then he'd yank them away once he realizes no more money forthcoming. I don't even think I could bring myself to answer at the window should he call up. I'd most likely curl into a fetal ball and pray he'd go away. As much as I yearned to shower the pups with love again, his jealousy of our friendship could rain additional anger upon my furry darlings. Deek needed the fear of God to strike his heart in order to make the necessary changes. Having the cops come down on him twice seemed to do the trick, I sincerely hope, and it will keep him away from me until that process unfolds and has done its proper work. It is said that a bodhisattva is one whose nature is to reject heaven though he's earned it, for the sake of liberating another soul not yet there, so he descends back down to hell in order to achieve just that. But once he sees he's done all he can, and further acts of compassion would only backfire and spread misery, he knows it's time to depart and return to nirvana for a well-earned rest, then perhaps bring succor to a different soul and go through it all again. Indeed, heaven and hell truly are a state of mind. Subject, Deek's return. Around 9:30 p.m. tonight, he called up to my window quite softly but distinct. I froze up and didn't answer, making sure to keep away from the window. He called a few more times, then silence once more. A few more minutes went by before I poked my head out to see him sitting right below with the pups. I decided to sneak out the back and walk around the building, so when I approached him, it looked like I was out for a stroll up Noe Street. Someone else had joined him by then. As you can see by this snapshot, Deek is seated on the right with his legs stuck out, and the pups are there too, but covered by an old jacket I placed on them. Of course, they were both delighted to see me again, and Flacco even stood up on her master's lap and leaned back against his chest so I could rub her belly, which she loves, while adoring my face with those sparkly brown eyes. "Can you help me?" he queried. I assumed he meant money, so I replied, "No, my budget's shot this month. Xfinity took $310 from my bank when their internet is supposed to be free. So I got to clear this up, and it could take weeks. I'll probably dump their service and just use Super Duper's Wi-Fi." "I wasn't asking for money," he said in a calm voice. "I'd just like you to charge this tablet and put music on it." I also told him I'm not going to resume his allowance until he takes better care of the pups. No more chicken bones, no more lashing them to a standing bike, no more letting them shiver at night. He said okay, and added, "I got to start acting better." "No kidding, Deek," I retorted. "No kidding, Deek," I retorted. "Screaming at me, threatening to beat me up, starting arguments in front of others to make me look bad? Stop it. I almost put a restraining order on you." He's down there now, waiting for his tablet to finish charging. It's already after midnight, my usual cutoff time. But I told him since the tablet was on slow charge for 40 minutes while copying a ton of rap songs, I'd be glad to let it charge until 1, so he can leave with a greater percentage, as it's only at 27 right now. He agreed to wait. It's been a peaceful visit, and he had the dogs resting on a large plush cushion, but it was cold outside, and I told him he needs to cover them up, and pointed at his cart laden with old clothing. He frowned and said, "Nah, they're cool." "Yes, too cool. You need to keep them warm," I replied. He didn't say okay, take something from the cart. So I marched back upstairs and brought an old jacket back down and flung it over the pups, which they greatly appreciated. "These dogs never complain, Deek," I pointed out. "They're not going to let you know when they're cold. Don't wait till they're actually shivering." He didn't reply to that, but also did not oppose me, and kept the jacket over their little bodies. I then went back hovel to prepare them a meal, and with that, water and a stash of dog food he can take with him. It looks like Deek is now comfortable having the mutts with him 24/7, knowing I can no longer dog sit, thanks to the homeless sweep and the Castro. I think he only got dramatic about it to coerce me into watching them so he could be freed for part of the day, or just being dramatic for the power trip. I would never consider myself free without those darling quadrupeds' gracious company. What an ingrate. Well, another half hour before I return the tablet, give Flacco and Lucky a few more hugs, pats, and kisses, then hit the sack. I shall sleep very well for having the doggies back in my life, along with, hopefully, a calmer, friendlier Deek. I'm sure I put him through a bit of a shock, driving him away like that. It may have been the best thing to do at this point. He gets no more allowance till next month at the earliest, and it will be $50 a week instead of $100. I'll just tell him my college debt caught up with me, and I have to start paying back at $250 a month, or some other excuse. Deek's return. Watson wrote, "So glad to hear that the pups are in good shape, though I think they deserve to be totally pampered. So I replied, of course they do. They have nothing but love and joy in their hearts. Anything less than complete respect, appreciation, and kindness in return is an abomination." Watson wrote, "Smart of you to lower his allowance." So I replied, he gets nothing the rest of this month, and he hasn't rebelled hearing that, just listened without comment, and if that's what he was aiming at for all along, to see if I had the ovaries to stand up to him, as if it were a test, scripted, as if he were my chief bodhisattva guardian putting me through my paces, he seemed to sense when to stay away and when I'm ready to resume our meetups, and when to not ask for money in light of his recent offenses that I've made crystal clear to him last night that he not wheedle his way out of it. Watson wrote, "And really admirable the way you did the tough love thing and stuck to your guns." 5 bang marks after guns there. So I replied, "It is the only way through this mess as far as I can tell. Flacco's collar has finally fallen apart, so I gave him a spare that isn't as durable as the one he was wearing because it's nylon instead of leather, but it'll do until the new collars I ordered show up several days from now. I also ordered another pair of leashes, durable and inexpensive, and finally I ordered another pair of sweaters, though they're out of camouflage for their size, so I got the maroon ones instead. Deek dropped by this morning so I could recharge his tablet and Bluetooth speaker. He returned 3 hours later to pick them up, but only allowed me a minute to shower kindness on the doggies. Don't know whether that's due to childish resentment or a desire to flee the Castro before any cops arrive. He thanked me and moved on while I just stood there and watched them leave. Flacco glanced back at me thrice before crossing the street. But the cart's propulsion forced her to turn back quickly each time and prance onward. Deek always finds one way or another to instill ongoing needless heartbreak when it comes to these lovely angels. Like he couldn't just hang at the corner for a few minutes before departing, allowing us to talk and me to give the pups a bigger dose of affection. With my every breath, I pray he makes those changes for the better, for both his own sake as well as for those sweet little hounds. He's missing out on so much goodness in his life, thanks to petty notions that have no grounding in reality. It's not like he doesn't thrive very well on the streets already, which is an amazing accomplishment in and of itself. But this maltreatment of Lucky and Flacco has got to go, or he'll lose them. And with that, his heart. It would be a lifelong travail of misery if he does. It's possible he'll return this evening, so let's see what happens next, whether tonight or another day. I will stay on top of things regarding his direction, which just might piss him off, but that's his problem, not mine. My responsibility toward the dog's well-being stands mountains above anything else, including any further insults and threats he might throw in my face. Subject: he's back to screaming again. Last night was a good meet-up, but this morning was an equus of a different hue. First, he screamed about a beat-up smartphone he gave me to charge overnight, along with a tablet and 2 small speakers. He told me to just charge the phone. It already has music on it. But I decided to check it out as soon as I got up because it still needed some settings changed, such as turning off location and disabling or removing apps he never uses in order to preserve battery life and keep him out of trouble. But upon starting up, it required the correct PIN code. So I thought, that's that. It's fully charged. But I can't go further. However, I decided to type in 1234 on a lark, and to my surprise it worked. I didn't find any music on the chip anywhere. So after seeing the phone has 12 gigabytes of free space, I uploaded a buttload of his own MP3s. He showed up early around 7:30 a.m., and when I came downstairs to bring him the devices, except that phone because it still needed a bit more tweaking, I told him the situation. "What?" he hollered as I petted the doggies. "I told you not to touch it, just recharge it. The person I got it from said it already has loads of music installed. You probably erased it all." "Well, he was wrong," I replied. "There was no music on the phone, so I did you a big favor and put your music on it, yet here you go again, screeching like an idiot. How did you know the code?" He addressed me with a perplexed frown. "I just guessed," I explained with a shrug. "The first number I tried was 1234, and it unlocked." "Yeah, that's the right number," he noted with a startled look. That's when I realized he doesn't understand. 1234 is the most common password lazy smartphone owners use. "So where's the phone?" he queried after looking in the 1-gallon Ziploc bag I handed him, containing just 3 devices. "Upstairs," I replied. "Music was still being copied to it when you called up to me, and I need to set up a few more things. It's almost ready." Then I added, "Okay, give me a minute to delete all the music I uploaded, since you're so upset I did that." No, leave it," he hollered, along with other words not so nice. As I approached the front gate with a dismissive wave of my hand several times before entering, I heard him continue to scream as I entered my room and unplugged the device, all the while thinking, if I just charged the phone and gave it back to him, he'd find no music on it and have a hissy fit anyway. Damned if I do, and damned if I don't.